Hey, I'm so excited because I'm making my Aunt Jan's pot roast for dinner tonight. It's a family favorite. My Aunt Jan started making it for us, maybe 3 years ago or so. I forget how long it was ago that she introduced this recipe, but growing up, my favorite pot roast was when my mom made the Coca-Cola and ketchup pot roast, and that was just my simple childhood favorite. But everyone in the family just loves my Aunt Jan's pot roast now that she's started making for a lot of family gatherings, because pot roast is a great way just to feed a whole bunch of people, and it's yummy and a crowd pleaser. But this is now one of my go-to recipes, and so I'm definitely giving my aunt credit for sharing it, although I don't think the recipe was originally hers. Like, she got it from a friend or found it in a cookbook or online. I think I've seen similar versions shared by some of my other friends on Facebook. So if you've heard of this recipe before, that's awesome, because I know you're already loving it. So I'm going to turn it around so that y'all can see what I'm doing. Okay, so pot roast is great in a crock pot, but today either I would have had to get everything set up before church, or have to put everything together after church, so that kind of cramps my timing a little bit. And I decided to do my pot roast in my Dutch oven today because I can slow cook it in the oven a little bit quicker than I can slow cook it on the counter in my crock pot. I feel like if I crank up the pot roast to high, it cooks a little bit faster, and it's just not quite what I wanted for today. So today I'm using my oven. I'm doing the Dutch oven instead of the crock pot. But so I have a chuck roast. So it was in my freezer and labeled. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's probably too shiny. But a chuck roast, I froze it January 2017. That's on there, and it's 2.4 pounds. And so I love having things labeled in the freezer because it makes it so much easier to figure out what you have and like how long, when you need to use it before it expires and all of that. So this was in my freezer, and I set it out on my counter overnight to thaw, so that it would be all set and I wouldn't have to wait for it to thaw or anything like that. Doing this one-handed is a little bit trickier than I thought, you guys. So as you can see, I have it wrapped up pretty well in a couple layers of tin foil. I'm going to set it down for just a minute. Thanks for sticking with me. I mean, that was a little bit of a two-handed job. So I had it wrapped up in a couple layers of tin foil. I think I was actually out of wax paper on the day I froze this. So I wrapped it in 2 layers of tin foil instead of putting a layer of wax paper and then a layer of tin foil like I usually do. But I already trimmed it of a little bit of fat, so it's all set to go. It's just the right size for my crock pot. Usually anywhere from like 2 to 4 pounds, like maybe 5 pounds, kind of fits in my Dutch oven. I forget what size this is, but and before I put the meat in there, I sprayed it with just a little bit of Pam to keep everything from sticking, make it a little bit easier to clean up. And so I also have a packet of All Just seasoning. So I have Publix brand, but really any brand works. I know McCormick makes one, but just any kind of All Just, and I'm just sprinkling it on the top. And then a package of ranch salad dressing and seasoning mix. I've had a hard time finding like ranch mix that's not ranch brand. That, I don't know if that's the thing or not, but this is delicious. I love the ranch. It's great. Okay. And then the next ingredient is banana pepper rings. I think that's what the recipe originally calls for. I'm using about half a jar. So I usually use half a jar of the banana peppers and a little bit of the juice. I drained some of the juice before I shook it in here just to make it easier, but you really don't need a ton of juice. The meat's going to create its own juice. So just some peppers. Also like doing getting like red bell peppers or green bell peppers and just seeding them and then chopping those up and throwing them in there. Just the fresh peppers is a great alternative to doing banana peppers, especially in the summer when they're fresh and on sale. And sometimes I have a hard time finding the banana peppers at Publix anyway, which is where I do a lot of my shopping because they're super helpful when you're shopping with a baby. So for a while I had a hard time finding the banana peppers the recipe called for, and so I just substituted the other peppers that I had on hand, and that usually worked out pretty good. I think the recipe actually calls for one stick of butter, and that's what I usually do. My Aunt Jan usually makes it with half a stick of butter, and hers turns out delicious. She actually, I think, forgot the butter the last time she made it, but it still turned out really good. We didn't even miss the butter. So today I'm just decided to do half the stick of butter, just a little bit healthier than doing the full stick. I'm going to see how that turns out when I'm doing it. Although sometimes it's just easier to throw the whole stick in there, but cutting it in half doesn't take much time either. But it just kind of gives you some options, and you can add more or less butter depending on your preferences, or what kind of flavor that you want your pot roast to have. But that's really it. So just like basically 4 ingredients. I'm not counting the pot roast. So you got your beef roast. We've got the all just, we've got the ranch, we've got some kind of peppers, and we've got some kind of butter. You could even substitute margarine or vegetable, oil, any kind of vegetable oil substitutes if you wanted to. I usually really don't care for margarine. I kind of think it tastes like plastic, and you have to worry about trans fats and all of that. So that's just not something we have around at all at our house. We like to use fresh butter a lot, and I really like Kerrygold butter. We were in Ireland and saw all the cows walking around and eating the fresh green grass, and I've just did a little bit of research on grass-fed cows versus, cows that eat grains, and whether or not it's organic. I think you do get a little bit different flavor and a little bit healthier from grass-fed cows. But really, any kind of butter. We also like to keep olive oil-based butters on hand. Olive oil is super heart healthy, and you can get olive oil-based butter substitutes. And we've also found that some that are completely dairy-free, completely soy-free. And so if we're ever making something for James, then we use that because that's safe for him. So that's something else you could throw in here if that's sounds like something that your family uses. But between the ranch and the all just, there's stuff in there that James can't have. So it doesn't really matter whether I use real butter or the special olive oil stuff we have for James. He can't eat it either way. So I just went ahead and did the stick of butter. It makes it super easy to measure too, super quick. And so now all I'm going to do is put my lid on, and don't worry about not adding water or anything, because the pot roast will create its own juice. So you don't even have to add extra liquid. So since I'm doing it in my Dutch oven, I found, in your ovens, may run hotter or colder, but doing 225, just cooking low and slow, works for our oven. So I usually cook about 2 hours per pound of meat. So I had about 2.5 pounds of meat, so I'm going to cook it on 225 for 5 hours. So plenty of cooking time. Low and slow really helps make it just moist and tender. Sorry for those people like my brother's girlfriend that don't like the M word that I just said, but it will be not dry and flavorful and really tender, so that you can just pull it apart once it's done cooking. I know that the instant pots are really popular now. I haven't jumped on that bandwagon yet, but I probably should. So I can. Sometimes we need something really fast, but I just love either my slow cooker or my Dutch oven, just because I really love just smelling the whatever you're cooking throughout the day, and then just knowing that you can pop it in. Even before you leave for work, you can pop a whatever you're slow cooking in your slow cooker and, plug it up. You don't have to turn your oven on, and then it's all set when you come home from work, which for a lot of people is, 8 or so hours. I know a lot of healthcare professionals, including myself, that doesn't usually happen, but, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this in here. But it's always a treat just to know that you've got something. You don't have to do a whole lot of prep. This is going to do the cooking for you, tenderize it, just throw everything into a pot and not having to worry about a lot of extra prep. So that was just pretty easy. I mean, it took me less than 5 minutes to put all that together. I just have to throw that away now. Put it all together, put it in the oven. 5 hours later, everything should smell really good and be delicious and be a ready-made meal. Just throw a couple sides together to go with it. So I hope y'all love this recipe like our family does. I'd love to hear what you think if you try it.